After 60, the skin's collagen matrix degrades by 1 to 2% every year. This breakdown starts inside the cells. As mitochondria become less efficient, they produce a surplus of reactive oxygen species, resulting in chronic oxidative stress. Localized oxidative stress in the dermal layers creates a broader biochemical cascade. It drives systemic inflammation, which clinical literature identifies as the root driver of cardiovascular disease, arthritis, and neurodegeneration. The skin functions as a dynamic transdermal interface, containing microscopic pathways that allow specific molecular compounds to pass directly into the bloodstream. Treating aging skin is highly relevant to internal health. It provides a direct, viable vector for clinical intervention into the body's entire systemic inflammatory network. The clinical literature points to a specific botanical source for this kind of intervention, the Nigella sativa plant, and its primary bioactive compound, Thymoquinone, or TQ. There is a sharp divide between commercial wellness marketing and empirical science. As of 2024, there are over 2,000 published peer-reviewed clinical studies documenting the precise mechanisms of this compound. TQ operates through a biological principle called pleiotropy. Instead of acting on a single target, it is a multi-pathway signaling molecule capable of executing several biological interventions simultaneously. Traditional pharmaceuticals are specifically engineered for single-pathway interventions. They block or stimulate one exact receptor, which often limits their scope. We can systematically map TQ's 5 distinct intervention pathways to see exactly how it repairs aging skin tissue and mitigates systemic inflammation. The first pathway is direct anti-inflammatory action. At the cellular level, the TQ molecule physically inhibits an enzyme known as cyclooxygenase 2, or COX-2. This is the exact enzymatic target that synthetic non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen and naproxen are designed to suppress. The clinical difference lies in the safety profile. TQ achieves this COX-2 inhibition without inducing the gastrointestinal mucosal damage or hepatotoxicity that strictly limits long-term NSAID use. Human clinical trials demonstrate the efficacy of this mechanism. Regular topical application of TQ yields a quantifiable reduction in skin inflammation markers within 6 weeks. The compound effectively provides pharmaceutical-grade inflammatory inhibition while bypassing the cascading toxic side effects of synthetic alternatives. The second pathway targets the cellular damage causing that inflammation. Upon entering the dermal layer, TQ acts immediately as a direct free radical scavenger, neutralizing surrounding reactive oxygen species. It then shifts from passive scavenging to active biological modulation. The molecule penetrates the cell membrane and interacts directly with intracellular signaling proteins. One of its primary targets is the NRF2 pathway, which functions as the master genetic switch for the body's internal antioxidant defense system. Once TQ activates the NRF2 protein, it translocates from the cytoplasm directly into the cell nucleus, where it modifies gene expression. This specific genetic modification triggers a massive upregulation in the cell's production of glutathione, a highly potent endogenous antioxidant. This signaling sequence causes aging cells to manufacture their own antioxidant supply internally, creating a sustained biological defense. The third pathway involves cellular regeneration. At the dermal-epidermal junction lies a layer of epidermal stem cells, responsible for repairing damaged tissue. A critical biological distinction in aging skin is that these stem cells do not die. They simply enter a sustained state of dormancy. The biological triggers needed to initiate their proliferation are the WNT and beta-catenin signaling proteins. By upregulating these specific proteins, TQ sends the exact chemical signal required to wake up these dormant stem cells and initiate cellular division. For geriatric patients, localized cellular division translates directly into accelerated wound healing and the structural thickening of degrading dermal layers. This approach shifts the focus of geriatric dermatology from external maintenance to the activation of latent cellular repair cycles. The fourth pathway addresses the skin's microbiome. TQ demonstrates broad-spectrum antimicrobial activity on the skin's surface. Unlike commercial antibiotics that indiscriminately eradicate all bacteria, the literature shows TQ selectively restores equilibrium to the microbial community, preserving necessary immune defenses. The fifth pathway, the compound's observed anti-cancer properties, is the most heavily scrutinized claim in the literature. It is crucial to qualify the evidence. This data is derived from in vitro laboratory studies on human cancer cell lines, not from systemic human clinical trials. To divide uncontrollably, malignant cells must evade apoptosis, which is the body's mechanism for programmed cell death. TQ overcomes this cellular evasion. By modulating the BCL2 and P53 proteins, it forces abnormal cells back into the apoptotic pathway to self-destruct. Transdermal dosing for systemic oncology requires further investigation. However, the localized ability to induce healthy apoptosis in abnormal skin cells remains a highly significant pharmacological asset. Translating these cellular mechanisms into patient outcomes requires precision timing. The science of chronobiology dictates that the skin's chemical behavior fluctuates drastically over a 24-hour cycle. During sleep, systemic cortisol levels, which suppress immune function, drop to their absolute lowest, while cellular repair processes reach their peak. This chart illustrates a biological phenomenon called nocturnal transdermal conductance. As you can see, the skin's permeability spikes significantly between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. Timing the transdermal application to this specific window aligns the compound's highest bioavailability perfectly with the cell's peak DNA repair phase. Application timing is a critical pharmacokinetic variable necessary to achieve the compound's peak systemic concentration. To ensure clinical viability, the extraction parameters for the Nigella sativa oil must be strictly controlled. Standard commercial heat processing and chemical solvent extraction both destroy the volatile TQ molecules and introduce unwanted contaminants into the oil. To preserve biomolecular integrity, the required physical starting point is a completely unrefined cold-pressed extract. For clinical efficacy, the final product must undergo third-party testing to confirm a specific Thymoquinone yield ranging between 1 and 3. Without verifying these biochemical parameters, the concentration of the active compound remains too low to initiate the multi-pathway signaling effects. Despite millennia of historical use, introducing highly concentrated bioactive compounds requires clinical respect and careful oversight. Geriatric patients on blood-thinning medication must exercise caution, as TQ possesses naturally occurring mild anticoagulant properties. Additionally, patients undergoing active chemotherapy should strictly avoid introducing new botanical variables without direct consultation from their oncologist. When properly sourced and timed, plant-derived pleiotropy offers a highly sophisticated mechanism for tissue repair that costs almost nothing and carries minimal risk. The clinical data surrounding Thymoquinone moves geriatric dermatology away from passive symptom management, providing an evidence-based mechanism for active, multi-pathway cellular regeneration.